Every man believes he is free, yet every move he makes is governed by laws he cannot see. These laws are not written in books or spoken in classrooms. They are carved into the psychology of power itself. The weak call them manipulation. The wise call them survival. I am not here to comfort you. I am here to awaken you, because whether you realize it or not, these 12 Machiavellian laws already rule your life. The only question is, do you rule them, or do they rule you? The first law, the law of control, is the foundation of all power. Every empire, every leader, every master of destiny begins with one realization. If you cannot command yourself, you cannot command anyone else. Control is not about dominating others first. It begins with the silent conquest of your own impulses. Most people are slaves disguised as free men, chained not by others but by their own emotions. They react to insults, they overthink rejection, they crave validation, and in that craving, they surrender control of their lives to whoever gives or withholds attention. Machiavelli understood that the world is not ruled by the strongest or the kindest, but by the one who remains unmoved when others lose their composure. The man who stays calm when chaos erupts becomes the axis around which others spin. To master control, you must understand your emotions as tools, not as masters. Anger, fear, jealousy, and desire. These are the levers others will pull to steer you. When you react emotionally, you become readable. And when you are readable, you are predictable. A predictable man can be controlled like a puppet. Power requires that you learn to pause before reacting, to analyze before acting, to detach when others expect emotion. Detachment is not weakness, it is a weapon. The man who can stay silent while being provoked is far more dangerous than the one who shouts to defend his pride. Control is the art of appearing calm even when you are burning inside, because perception often matters more than reality. In politics, in relationships, and in society, those who lose control lose respect. Observe any leader who fell from grace. It was rarely an external enemy that destroyed him, but his inability to control his anger, greed, or ego. The world tests your composure every day. The people around you unconsciously seek to expose your weaknesses, to find the buttons that make you flinch. Once they find them, they can manipulate you at will. The only defense is mastery over self. When you are no longer moved by praise or insult, gain or loss, acceptance or rejection, you become untouchable. That is true freedom. Control also means mastering your attention. Where your focus goes, your life follows. Most people scatter their energy. They chase distractions, argue over meaningless things, waste hours trying to prove their worth to those who don't care. A Machiavellian mind understands that time and attention are the currencies of power. Guard them like a fortress. Every minute spent reacting emotionally is a minute stolen from your goals. Discipline is control in action. Wake when you say you will, work when you don't feel like it, remain consistent when others quit. This builds an inner authority that no one can challenge. Control extends beyond emotions and habits. It governs your presence. When you enter a room, your body language, tone, and stillness should communicate authority without effort. People instinctively follow the one who appears in command of himself. The calm one always wins the room because others subconsciously sense strength and restraint. The loudest man is rarely the most powerful. He is merely the most insecure. True dominance is silent, measured, deliberate. When you control your movements, your words, and your reactions, others begin to adjust themselves to your rhythm. That is how influence begins, not through force, but through psychological gravity. In the end, control is not about suppressing your humanity. It is about directing it. You feel everything, but you decide what deserves expression. You experience fear, but you act with courage. You notice disrespect, but you respond with strategy, not impulse. This is the essence of power, the ability to remain centered when others lose their balance. Once you achieve that, you stop being a pawn in the game of life and become the player who moves the pieces. Perception is the invisible battlefield where true power is won or lost. The world rarely rewards truth. It rewards presentation. What people believe about you matters far more than what you actually are. Machiavelli understood that power is not built on reality but on illusion skillfully maintained. Those who appear strong, confident, and composed are treated as such, even if inside they are uncertain. The masses cannot see inside a man's mind. They can only read the signals he projects. If your image radiates authority, calm, and certainty, people will follow you even when they don't fully understand you. Appearances dictate behavior, and behavior shapes outcomes. Thus, to master perception is to master influence. People crave certainty and strength because they themselves lack it. When they sense someone who seems unshaken by fear or chaos, they instinctively assign him higher status. This is why appearing strong is often more important than being strong. You can have power in private, but if you do not project it publicly, it is invisible and useless. Your image is your armor and your weapon. Every word, gesture, and silence communicates something about your position in the hierarchy. If you project weakness, you invite attack. If you project confidence, you attract submission. Power thrives in perception because humans trust what they see, not what they cannot verify. To control perception, you must first learn to see yourself as others do. How you walk, how you speak, how you respond under stress, these create the story others believe about you. Even subtle details can shape your reputation. A calm gaze in the middle of conflict signals control. A measured tone commands respect. A slow reaction to insult communicates dominance. The world constantly interprets your behavior, and every small display becomes a signal of your inner world. Those who fail to understand this are slaves to misunderstanding. They reveal too much, defend too quickly, and let others define their image. A Machiavellian never allows that. He crafts his perception deliberately, with precision and patience. Powerful perception is not about lying. It is about directing attention. You do not need to be flawless. You only need to highlight your strengths and hide your weaknesses. The mind of the crowd is simple. It forgets what is unseen and magnifies what is shown. If you stumble, shift the focus. If you fail, reframe it as strategy. If you are uncertain, speak as if you are certain. The illusion of control often becomes real because people reinforce what they believe about you. Their faith in your confidence becomes the foundation of your actual power. In this way, perception creates reality. But there is danger in neglecting this law. When you expose your vulnerability too easily, when you confess your fears or display confusion, others begin to doubt you. Doubt spreads faster than truth. Once people sense hesitation, they retreat their trust and begin to test you. That is how leaders lose control, not because they were defeated, but because they appeared defeated. Machiavelli warned that it is safer to be feared than loved, for fear maintains the illusion of strength even in moments of weakness. Yet this fear must be balanced with respect. Cruelty without intelligence breeds rebellion. The key is to appear firm but not heartless, confident but not arrogant, decisive but never desperate. In every interaction, understand that perception is currency. Those who manage it skillfully can rise above those who are more talented but careless with their image. The powerful are not always the most capable. They are the ones who know how to look capable. Even silence can serve as perception control. When you say nothing, people fill the void with their own assumptions, often overestimating your strength. Mystery amplifies power because the unknown terrifies people. When they cannot fully read you, they tread carefully around you. In a world driven by appearance, mastery of perception is the ultimate form of control. Silence is the purest form of control. In a world addicted to noise, the man who can remain silent becomes powerful because silence forces others to reveal themselves. Machiavelli understood that words are dangerous. They expose your mind, your emotions, your intentions. Every time you speak, you give the world something it can use against you. The wise learn to speak rarely, and only when words will serve a purpose. The rest of the time, they let silence do the talking. It confuses, provokes curiosity, and creates a sense of mystery that draws people in. Most people cannot handle silence. It makes them uncomfortable. They rush to fill it with explanations, excuses, or confessions, and in doing so, they reveal everything. Power lies in what you withhold. When you do not explain yourself, others must guess your motives, and guessing gives them anxiety. They wonder what you know, what you're planning, how you feel about them. That uncertainty grants you psychological dominance. The one who controls the flow of information controls the balance of power. When you are silent, you decide what others learn about you, and more importantly, what they will never know. The great rulers, manipulators, and strategists of history all shared one trait: restraint. They understood that words are like currency. Spend them too freely, and they lose value. The less you speak, the more your words matter when you finally choose to use them. Silence also protects your emotions. When you respond immediately to provocation, you expose your weaknesses. You show that your ego can be touched, that your peace can be disturbed. But when you remain calm and unresponsive, you unsettle your enemies. They start to question their influence over you. They wonder if you are unaffected or simply plotting something bigger. That uncertainty eats at them, making them defensive and careless. A silent man holds the tension in his favor because others interpret his quiet as confidence. Silence then becomes an aura, a psychological pressure that makes others talk more, reveal more, and make mistakes in their attempts to read you. In social and political life, people constantly compete for attention through words. Everyone wants to be heard, to prove their intelligence or status through endless talking. Yet, the one who listens more and speaks less gains the most valuable resource of all: information. People expose their motives and fears to anyone who listens attentively. When you let others speak freely, they will eventually betray their own intentions. Machiavelli would say that silence is not passive. It is an active weapon of observation. You let others reveal themselves while you remain invisible. The one who knows more always wins, and knowledge is born from silence. The power of mystery cannot be overstated. When you speak too openly, you destroy the intrigue that could have made you memorable. Humans are drawn to what they cannot fully understand. The unknown creates fascination. Silence keeps you unpredictable, and unpredictability breeds respect. No one dares to underestimate someone whose thoughts are unreadable. Those who constantly explain themselves, justify their choices, or share their plans give away the map to their power. Once others can read you, they can plan against you. The less you reveal, the fewer weapons they can forge. Practicing silence does not mean becoming detached from the world or refusing communication. It means being deliberate. You speak when it strengthens your position and remain silent when it would weaken it. You answer questions with precision, not emotion. You keep people slightly unsure of what you think or intend, and that uncertainty becomes your armor. The modern world glorifies expression, but those who speak less often command more attention when they finally do. Every word then carries weight. Every pause creates anticipation. The greatest power is not in the voice that shouts the loudest, but in the one that chooses when and how to break the silence. Loyalty is a fragile illusion, a currency that most people spend recklessly without understanding its true nature. Machiavelli recognized that humans are inherently self-interested, driven by their own desires and survival instincts. To expect unwavering loyalty is to misunderstand the fundamental nature of people. Those who claim to be devoted will often turn when circumstances shift, or when personal gain outweighs allegiance. Understanding this truth is not cynical pessimism. It is a recognition of the world as it is, not as you wish it to be. The moment you accept that everyone serves themselves first, you stop being vulnerable to betrayal and start building power on the foundation of strategy rather than hope. Self-interest governs human behavior more consistently than morality. People are guided by rewards and punishments, benefits and losses, comfort and risk. Even the closest allies will prioritize their advantage over promises or past favors. Machiavelli observed that rulers who relied solely on affection or gratitude often fell because they neglected the deeper currents of human motivation. To navigate this reality, you must anticipate self-interest in everyone around you, including friends, partners, and subordinates. By acknowledging this, you do not become cold or unfeeling. Rather, you position yourself to manipulate the natural impulses of others for your benefit. Anticipating how people will act when their self-interest is triggered allows you to stay several moves ahead, like a chess player predicting an opponent's response before the move is made. This understanding transforms the way you deal with relationships. You no longer demand loyalty as a moral right. Instead, you earn it through calculated incentives. You reward those who serve your goals, not because you feel obligated, but because it reinforces their alignment with your objectives. You recognize that loyalty is temporary and conditional, and by treating it as such, you prevent disappointment and betrayal from destabilizing your plans. Machiavelli would argue that the wise do not expect gratitude or blind allegiance. They expect functionality and performance, and they design systems and relationships to maximize outcomes rather than emotional attachment. Recognizing the primacy of self-interest also sharpens your awareness of manipulation. When someone acts devoted or supportive, ask yourself why. What do they gain from their behavior? Are they motivated by genuine admiration, or are they seeking advantage, protection, or status? Understanding this allows you to separate true allies from opportunists, to reward effectively, and to defend against subtle subversion. By seeing the world as a network of self-serving motives, you reduce surprises and build resilience. You learn to interpret actions not at face value but through the lens of incentive and consequence. In personal and professional life, this law reshapes power dynamics. Leaders who ignore the self-interest of others often face rebellion, disappointment, or exploitation. They expect loyalty to arise spontaneously from goodwill, neglecting that humans are primarily guided by what benefits them most. A Machiavellian mind, however, leverages this knowledge. It structures relationships to align others' self-interest with its own objectives. When people see that their advantage is linked to your success, their actions naturally reinforce your power. Manipulating this alignment is not deceit for its own sake. It is strategy, turning a predictable human tendency into a tool that strengthens your position. Ultimately, understanding self-interest is liberating. You stop clinging to illusions of loyalty and stop being blindsided by betrayal. You learn to read the intentions of others accurately, to anticipate moves before they happen, and to design systems that minimize risk and maximize gain. By embracing this law, you cultivate a mindset that sees beyond sentiment and focuses on power, strategy, and control. Loyalty becomes a tool, not a trap, and relationships become instruments for influence rather than sources of vulnerability. Through this lens, you see the world clearly, without delusion, and you act decisively in alignment with the reality of human nature. Change is the hidden force that separates the weak from the strong, the predictable from the unstoppable. Those who resist it, clinging stubbornly to what is familiar, are crushed by the tide of circumstance. Machiavelli recognized that adaptability is not optional for those who wish to survive in a world governed by power and ambition. It is a requirement. Life will never remain static. Societies rise and fall, alliances shift, markets fluctuate, and human behavior evolves. To ignore these changes is to court irrelevance or disaster. The wise, however, anticipate change, embrace it, and manipulate it to their advantage. They bend with the wind before it breaks them, and in bending, they often gain the ability to shape the wind itself. The first step toward true adaptability is awareness. You must see the currents beneath the surface, the subtle signals that indicate shifts before they become obvious. The inexperienced react only when the change has already struck, scrambling to recover. The master, in contrast, observes, predicts, and positions himself so that when the moment comes, he does not react. He acts. Anticipation turns potential threat into opportunity. For instance, in politics, a ruler who notices rising dissent can adjust policies, cultivate allies, and diffuse opposition before it becomes a crisis. In personal life, recognizing shifts in relationships, trends, or moods allows one to act strategically rather than impulsively. Adaptability is thus not mere survival. It is proactive mastery over the unpredictable. To be adaptable, you must also embrace flexibility in your own mindset and behavior. Rigidity, pride, or attachment to outdated methods creates vulnerability. The world punishes those who insist on doing things the old way simply because it is comfortable or familiar. Machiavelli admired leaders who could reinvent themselves, disguise weakness as strength, and adjust tactics without hesitation. Change is a weapon when wielded correctly. It allows you to respond fluidly to opponents, exploit their rigidity, and exploit openings they never saw coming. The one who can pivot quickly becomes unpredictable, and unpredictability is a form of power. People plan around those they can predict, but they fear and defer to those whose moves are uncertain and strategically calculated. Adaptation also requires letting go of attachment to outcomes or expectations. Those who cling to a single vision or desire are trapped by circumstance. They fail to see that the world rarely conforms to plans. The adaptable mind, however, evaluates the situation continuously and adjusts goals or methods as needed. This is not indecision, it is calculated flexibility. It is understanding that the path to power is rarely straight, and that obstacles are not failures but opportunities to find a better route. The wise transform setbacks into lessons, resistance into leverage, and pressure into momentum. Furthermore, adaptation is closely linked to timing. Knowing when to act and when to wait is a critical skill. A rigid person may act too early, too late, or in a manner that exposes weaknesses. The adaptable individual measures circumstances, anticipates reactions, and strikes when the moment maximizes advantage. Timing, aligned with flexibility, amplifies influence and minimizes risk. Even retreat, often seen as weakness, can be a strategic move if it allows for regrouping, gaining information, or positioning for a stronger return. The great strategist understands that sometimes the best move is not confrontation but subtle adjustment, appearing passive while secretly orchestrating control. Finally, adaptability is also about perception. A master of change does not merely react internally. He controls how his flexibility is interpreted externally. People respect the one who appears confident even while shifting tactics, because his changes seem deliberate rather than desperate. Those who panic or flail when the world shifts reveal their fragility. Mastering adaptation means mastering both the internal process of adjustment and the external projection of deliberate intention. Change becomes not a threat, but a tool to dominate circumstances, manipulate perception, and outmaneuver rivals. In essence, the ability to bend without breaking is the mark of power. Those who cling rigidly to habit, pride, or outdated expectations are swept aside by forces they cannot control. The adaptable individual turns every shift in circumstance into an advantage, exploiting rigidity, timing responses perfectly, and remaining unpredictable in the eyes of allies and enemies alike. Change is not merely a challenge, it is a weapon, and mastery over it separates those who survive from those who thrive. Every rise carries within it the seed of a fall. Machiavelli understood that power is never permanent, that even the strongest empires, the wisest leaders, and the most disciplined individuals are subject to cycles of change, decline, and renewal. To ignore this reality is to invite disaster, yet to acknowledge it is to gain the ultimate advantage. The wise do not fight the inevitability of decline, they anticipate it, prepare for it, and use it to their benefit. Understanding the natural rhythm of rise and fall allows one to act strategically in times of prosperity, ensuring that power is never entirely lost and that recovery is always possible. The first aspect of mastering power cycles is the awareness of vulnerability. Every position of strength is temporary. Every victory contains the risk of complacency. Those who celebrate without vigilance, who trust without scrutiny, or who grow arrogant in success are the easiest to overthrow. Power itself creates blind spots, because it attracts flattery and conceals threats. Machiavelli observed that leaders who fail to anticipate these threats are often undone not by their enemies alone, but by their own overconfidence. The moment you recognize that nothing is permanent, you begin to act differently. You no longer cling desperately to what you have, but instead build systems, alliances, and reserves that can withstand shocks and setbacks. Retreat and recovery are essential components of navigating cycles of power. When a leader senses the approach of a storm, the instinct may be to resist with force, yet raw confrontation often accelerates decline. The strategic retreat is not weakness, it is a repositioning. It allows for the accumulation of strength, the observation of emerging threats, and the planning of a counterstrike when conditions are favorable. History is filled with rulers and generals who fell only to return stronger, not because they avoided defeat entirely, but because they understood the timing of action and the necessity of patience. Machiavelli admired those who could withdraw with dignity, preserving resources and influence while the chaotic world around them revealed its vulnerabilities. Adaptation during periods of decline is critical. Every cycle of power presents new challenges, shifting alliances, changing public opinion, and unpredictable rivals. To survive these shifts requires flexibility and strategy, creativity and problem-solving, and a refusal to cling rigidly to outdated methods or prideful traditions. The ruler who cannot pivot is crushed by circumstance, while the one who adjusts maintains relevance even in apparent weakness. By embracing change as a constant companion, the wise individual transforms decline from an existential threat into a stage in the larger game of influence. The perception of power during cycles is also crucial. A visible fall can demoralize allies and embolden enemies, while a carefully managed appearance of composure maintains influence. Those who project stability, even in adversity, prevent rivals from taking advantage of their temporary vulnerabilities. The psychological element of cycles cannot be underestimated. People respond not only to reality, but to the signals they perceive. By controlling these perceptions, a leader can survive apparent decline and prepare for resurgence. Silence, strategic absence, and subtle action all contribute to a perception of resilience that protects long-term influence. Finally, rebuilding after decline is the mark of true mastery. Those who understand cycles do not seek to regain power through brute force alone. They reconstruct it with foresight, aligning resources, alliances, and timing to ensure that their resurgence is both swift and sustainable. Every setback provides lessons and opportunities that can be leveraged in the next phase. Machiavelli emphasized that the wise see failure as temporary and understand that power is a continuum, a series of rises, falls, and recoveries, rather than a permanent state. By mastering these cycles, one transforms vulnerability into strategy, unpredictability into advantage, and impermanence into a controlled rhythm of power. Awareness of cycles transforms every decision, every alliance, and every move. Success is no longer a moment to be celebrated blindly, and failure is no longer a reason to despair. Instead, each becomes part of a larger pattern that can be studied, anticipated, and leveraged. Those who recognize the inevitability of rise and fall operate above the chaos that consumes the complacent, using cycles to orchestrate influence, secure advantage, and ensure that their presence remains felt long after temporary defeats. Now you see the truth that most refuse to face. The world is not kind, it is strategic. Power does not favor the moral, the sentimental, or the naive. It favors the calculated, the patient, and the ruthless when necessary. These 12 laws do not bend for anyone. They rule quietly, invisibly, shaping your life whether you acknowledge them or not. The choice is yours. You can continue to stumble blindly, a puppet to forces you cannot control, or you can embrace these laws, mastering yourself, mastering perception, mastering every move. To survive, to rise, to dominate, you must act with the clarity of one who sees the world as it truly is. Those who understand and wield these truths do not merely live, they command. The rest are swept aside, unaware they were never in control at all.